All right, Facebook. I know this is tiring. Oh, the video camera is doing what it wants to do, but it is very difficult to make a video the way you want to make the video when the camera keeps cutting off. You really don't know when it's going to cut off. Like I said, the camera has a mind of its own. Talking reviews. We talked about the new thing that's coming over here. We're talking slaves. Someone said they'd have slaves here on American economy since the big embezzlement came out. In fact, it started with Caucasian trying to get us all into slavery, but now it's just selected ones, and they're coming out. I just don't believe they can do it. I think what they're going to eventually do is really make them angry, because understand, we haven't seen it, and so when they register and when they get enough people together, I know they will fight. As I talked about stereotyping, we have some white folks that probably can swing, but I tell you, and sometimes African Americans, y'all done gotten so sophisticated to where we can't really stereotype. Not in this day and time. You can't stereotype because we got Caucasian folks who love soul food. Just like me, I'm African American. I love Mexican food when it's done right. Now I'm up here in California and I'm adjusting to the way they do their Mexican food. Now I wouldn't rank Mexican food as high if I'm dealing with California, because I don't like California Mexican food, although you can acquire taste for it. But I love Texas Mexican food. I love the way they make it, and it's no such thing as being a Mexican making Mexican food right now. Everything has changed in this dispensation, even soul food. You can get a white girl out there probably can burn up like a Dean, Paula Dean. It's just all about being a Southern cook. Yeah. And so it's not about soul food. And so we can't really stereotype in this day and time. It's very difficult. And the reason being that we have blended in so. We've come a long way from group. We're not, let me tell you something. We're almost died standing groups, okay? Because there was a season when we said group. Now this season is, okay, let's love on one another. Let's be positive toward one another. Understand what grouping did. It allowed us to examine that we can't group. We say all white folks group, all Mexican groups, all black. You know what you'll get? A fight amongst one another, because we have a passion for one another. I believe we love each other. That's what I believe. And I believe it's very hard to group. You have more white folks over here than you have over there, I really believe that. And it's taken a lot of the racism out of us because we're seeing the love. We're seeing the warmth. We're seeing the reality of life, that we have blended so. We have interracial marriages all over the place. We have children coming from mixed couples everywhere, And so that also shows the love that we have for one another. And we do. I know we don't want to realize it, and sometimes we still use occasion to throw dirt in that area, but it's a healing. And I believe there's a healing occurring. To understand, even in America, and I don't mean to show in any other country that's out there, but even in America, you are an American, which means, as we went through recently here with the Mexico trying to take over our land, and you got Obama that was really fighting for non-Americans, and America being here, we are a group of variety, black, white, Hispanic, and if we didn't group according to where we're from, we would lose our land. Yeah, we would lose. We would lose who we are. And that's what they're bringing in. And that's why we say we have to be careful, y'all. And I know some of you don't care as long as we're able to live. But if you don't care who migrates over here, then we shouldn't care about the laws. As soon as we allow folks to migrate, and as we've done, push them up in position, then they're going to change everything we believe in. America is a country where it's supposed to be the free, the just. We don't have a third world mentality, but now we see, since Obama's been up there, we've been living a third world mentality. And not only Obama being in the presidential seat, we have a lot of Senate, we have a lot of governors, we have a lot of mayors who back their country. They support their own. And that's not what Americans believe in. If America supported their own, then we wouldn't have you all here, right? But this is still America, and I believe for a God of America, and I hate to put God over just America, but I believe there's a God of America that will keep America. He allows things to open up our eyes to allow us to see, and even in this, a lot of folks, we would just move on, right? We understand what needs to happen in America, but I believe there's too many timid people, and let me say this, because of stereotype, especially up in the White House. And I can't say so much as white, but that's what racism has placed up that high. A lot of folks stem from old school. They're left here with the old mentality, and they keep selecting racists. You're dealing with the White House now. Now, we know we had an Obama in there. Anything could be possible. You look at a lot of the employees of the White House, they're also non-Americans, and I can't understand how you have that in the White House, right? You look at they took a group picture, and you can almost count on your hands how many real Americans they had in I guess I don't know if it's Obama board. I just seen that they labeled them, and they're the heads of the different departments in the White House, and not that many Americans. Thank you. We don't have that many Americans in position. I'm talking Americans, all right? And we don't have any African Americans in that was in that department. We had, I think, about 2 with the color brown skin. Now, I have seen pictures lately, even on news, where they did have some African Americans up there. So, hey, I'm not that deep into politics, but I have seen pictures, and so we do need to base it upon Americans, and we do need to get timid whites. I know y'all want to be racist, y'all want to say that we're racist, but when we look at a substance and we see the majority of whites, we can already see where your heart is going. Understand what I'm saying? We don't have to speak racist slang. We don't have to say racist words. But when I look at a picture, I can almost tell what it is and what's in its heart. Amen, 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 church. That's what they used to say when the church was getting hit with stones and the pastor was preaching. And he wasn't preaching one of them messages going to just lift you up and make you shout. He wanted you to sit down and get some discipline. And so nobody wouldn't shout. And the pastor would say, amen, church. That means I say it by myself. Amen, because you know it. So when we look at the CIA and we see the majority of whites, and we look at the FBI, and then we see some things that are going on, if you watch something, what you see speaks louder than what you hear or what a person may say. Words mean nothing. Action is always seen. So what you see speaks louder. You can almost examine a thing and tell what it's coming from. And so when we have those educated, as we call, sophisticated Caucasian in position, we have to design ourselves for combat, right? We cannot put people up in position who are not trained to fight. Amen. And if y'all call them niggers and the nigger was made to be wild, then maybe we need somebody wild with a little class in order to keep the government down to where they should be, because you Caucasian folks are not working it for me right now, because that's what I see when I see the CIA, baby. I only can judge by what I see. When I see CIA, I see a bunch of country white boys up there, and they're not doing their job. And whenever I see organizations that's supposed to be anti-government, and yet they work with the government, then I have an issue with that also. Someone there is weak. We know that the government is they're very powerful people, but they're just people. Amen. And they should not be above the law. And when you put anti in there, someone who if we keep the government balanced, we're a success. I believe the economy would not be as is if we keep the government sets the atmosphere. I know we want to talk about the church, spiritually, with God's help, the church is the salt. But outwardly, naturally, the government, it heads the body. Oh, my God, I don't talk about the government. And then you have these pricks in the government that needs to be arrested already, right? When we deal with the government, we need someone, or we need a group in there, a true advocate. If they have their gunmen, we have our gunmen. It's all about a war within the country to keep the country balanced. We have to fight for our economy. We got to be brave enough to be able to walk into the White House and tell that president, if I see this on camera and you done killed all these black folks, and we can have it balanced. Anti means I'm not for what you're doing. When you get where we can see that you're wrong, and we can see that y'all fighting wars that should not be fought, and we can see that racists from other countries that have predominantly their kind over there is giving suggestions and heading up people over here in our country, then anti comes in and says, okay, government. And then government will say, well, we don't want to fund y'all. Well, y'all don't have money anyway. The money y'all have, y'all stole from the people. Every time you raise tax based on what you all don't have, amen, because tax should have something following it. Yes, we're in a deficit, but let's find out why we're in a deficit. And if we're in a deficit and we find embezzlement this big that the government is trying to cover up, You don't cover up embezzlement. You expose embezzlement because that is the reason our country is in a deficit. Whatever the situation may be, we have murders from the government, okay? Why is it that we have murderers? Someone told me that there's so many murders here on American soil is because we're overpopulated. You don't kill Americans. You push some of this stuff back that you want to be sensitive toward. You have folks that don't belong here. You have illegal immigrants. You know something else that will bring in a lot of money? These folks that won't even renew their visa cards. You want to call them Americans after so long, and they're still not Americans. If they wasn't born and raised here on our soil, then they're not Americans. Bottom line, they cannot say they're Americans, so we don't have to go out and kill and shoot. We just have a bad. You know what's happened? It's totally out of control. It is out of control now. We don't even know how to regulate what's going on in America. And then we got some mad black man up in position that's angry because things are not going his way, and he's throwing Mexicans out of jail and letting them walk on the soil. Walk on the soil, right? So that means what? Open up Mexico. Let them walk. Why? Because he's trying to destroy America. He's non-American, and he's trying to destroy America. And there are Americans here saying, okay, well, we can't do anything. Well, what are we supposed to do when we do take advantage of the situation? When we get everything back in control, what do we do with those folks that's up in position probably for the wrong reason, who could not get this thing under control? Why did they take so long? Why did we lose so many? Why is it that the money is like it is? How come we got a president that's totally crazy? Why do we got a White House staff that's totally fearful? What happened here? Do we need CIA or do we need to switch out? When you switch out CIA, the first thing they did, let me tell you, because we got to hit racism up high. I know y'all want to talk about us being racist. Some things about us being racist are outstanding. Again, when I see a picture with a bunch of perfect Caucasian men smiling, heck no. Not with this society. We're almost at the end of this world. This world is almost about to disappear, and we're still dealing with a picture with, in high position in the government, a majority of Caucasian folks. Come on, baby. Tell me what's going on. And let's y'all stand up and fight for what's right and don't be fearful. Someone told me that these people that came to my house in Atlanta, group of white folks, there was about 7 or 8 of them, those are the ones that sit someone in your home and tell you to sit still. Do you not know they would have to kill me right there? And they probably wouldn't have mind. But you know how they got us individually? Because somebody out there want to mind their own business. We've gotten so intellectual that we don't know how to fight, so we'd rather be quiet. I had a girlfriend back in high school, and her brother, I spoke to her the other day on the internet. They just had a brother who passed away, okay? She couldn't fight, but she wasn't going to stand to see me fight without her helping. We always laugh at this one friend, and she knows who she is. It was about 4 or 5 of us, and we would always stick together when it comes to fighting. And we didn't have to fight because of our name, right? But we got out there one time, and I seen my friend who couldn't fight. She jumped on their back and held them. Amen. Amen. What am I saying to you? If you make some commotions, move some things around. If you see racism and you see some white folks sitting inside of a black folk home and they're not supposed to be there, then you go and knock on some doors and say, no, we want to see, because there's only one. They're not putting a cluster of white folks in somebody's home. They're putting 1 or 2 after they done feared them. And they're backed by the government, so they'll come with a police officer. But when do we overthrow the government? When do we overthrow police officers? When do we come together in a group with our own machine guns, like police officers who dare to be racist? Racism is racism, and that's the only reason they're keeping this thing in force, is because they're using government. But when do we come back on the government and say, okay, this is just a regular war? We picked this war out on the street because the government is not fair. You cannot have slaves here. You cannot look at it as a slave thing. We have a law. We have a judicial system that if they are criminals, you arrest them, put them behind bars, and let them be sentenced fairly. Amen. You don't enslave them. And so when we have a government that's dealing with slavery, because we got to get the crevices out. We got racism up high in government. So we got to fight it. We got to combat it, even if it means beat the hell out of some police officers. And that's what I'm speaking today. We got a justice system that's been overthrown by Caucasians, and they are racist, and they're trying to turn us into slavery. Are you going to wait till they come to you as an individual before you start fighting back? Because even if you don't know how to fight and they come to you, not all the time you're going to resist, and not all the time you're going to subject. But there comes a time, y'all, and eventually what happens, that we overthrow this government, because we're not dealing with no daggone racism. We're not dealing, not in the government. We're not going to deal with no slavery. And we don't care if Mexico or whoever is trying to help them. We got to at least fight. We got enough folks out there. We had the majority of blacks murdered. They're dead. We can't bring them back. And then we had a lot of our Mexicans. They got hit, but they didn't put that on the news. And then we started having little whites. Yeah, and